Alright, I want to show you what's going on back here. This is probably the most radical part of this car, and people have really made a lot of comments at car shows and stuff in the past. One of the first changes I made to this car, this was a flat deck car, and in '86 I added these air extractors. A couple of scoops. Unlike today where most of the scoops are put forward, I put them back. They're both cut in. They tap that low pressure area in the back to help vacuum air out of the engine compartment. And they also play a second role to move that wing up and as far back as possible to try and get it a little bit more into the airstream and to actually work more like a wing and less of just simply trying to control air as it comes off of the deck. One of the next things you'll notice is these reflectors have been taken out, and actually 2 inches has been taken out of the middle of that bumper all the way from tire to tire. And the bottom of this car has been moved up. For one, it makes more room for this giant ground effects tunnel. And it also moves some of this, what I call the skags. This aerodynamic device right behind the tires. Gets them a little bit farther away from the road because this car has been really lowered. The frame is only about 3.5 inches off the floor. I mean, like the pan of the car is only about 3.5 inches. So I've moved anything that was lower up to that level. You can identify the fact that this is missing a couple inches because the license plate actually goes right up behind the bumper, and you can't even see the top 1.5 inches or so of the license plate. It also has a couple of notches for these exhaust pipes. They're not really complete quite yet. You know, they won't look, they'll be that size, but they won't look quite like that. Here you can get a little bit better view of this skag. It's been lowered about 9 inches in the back and about 4 inches in the front. And of course smoothed up and blended in. I made molds for these as well. And that helps define this big ground effects tunnel. Now, in order to make this ground effects tunnel look bigger, that little exhaust opening, I just cut that off, and I moved all of those curves, that whole section, right over as far as I could, as close to that license plate, and then filled that area in. Now, all of these curves and all of these shapes are almost exactly what original Fiero had. I've just exaggerated them a little bit and give it more of a race car feel and look. But I've tried to keep everything smooth. You know, keeping things really smooth is something that was big in the '90s, which is when this body work was done. So we've gotten quite a bit done in that direction. The belt line here has also been removed. Now, you can't just grind that shape off. I had to grind out the back, fill that with fiberglass matting, and then come to the front and grind all of this out right into that new fiberglass, and then fill it with fiberglass fabric, or matting, I mean. All the way around the car I did that. Grind it out in the back, fill it in with fiberglass matting, come to the outside. So it's 100% through with new fiberglass. It virtually cut the bottom half of this off and then bonded it back together as an effort to get rid of that molding. Now the last thing I want to show you today are these access panels. You know, you can see that the scoops end right here, just towards the back of the engine compartment. And then you know, this is something you're probably not going to see anybody else do. I don't have any louvers back here right over the engine. I've got solid covers from back in the 84, and then I've got the 85, and none of them are louvers. And that, you might think it is just completely crazy. But I have a reason for doing that. You know, I've seen some aerodynamic wind tunnel testing, and what you would see is air come off of the back and curls under and creates a little bit of a vacuum and pulls air up out of the engine compartment, and then that pushes the flow stream higher as it comes across the back. So what I'm trying to do is get that air to come down a little bit lower and maybe catch that wing and actually create some downforce with that wing. Now you're still going to get a swirl here. That really can't be eliminated. And all of those seals have been removed across the front edge. So you're going to get some air, a little bit of air up from the front. I intend to put 2 small fans under the front end of each one of these scoops. And I actually saw that in a forum where they used a thermostatic control to control those fans, so once some heat got behind there, the fans would come on and blow the air out the back. You know, in those situations where you're just sitting, parked, you know, because that's where these events I think work the most. But I made those changes really to try and get some air under this wing. Now, with a stock motor running nitrous oxide, this car would run at 140 miles an hour. But you had to unhook the sensor for the transmission, and then the computer didn't know how fast you were going. But you would see that the tachometer would swing up, you know, 1,500 or 2,000 RPMs higher in high gear. And because of that, I want to get a little bit more pressure down. And in our next tape, I'll show you what some of the changes are I made in the front to also get a little bit of downforce. So, I hope you enjoyed looking at some of these changes I've made to this car. And we look forward to seeing you in the next video.